Hello and welcome back to another episode of Flick POV, where we read one of our articles from flickpov.com. Today we're going to read our article about Shogun, which was one of the highest rated shows from this year. Now this article is different because this article was written by Thomas Lee, which was obviously not written by me, and I'm going to delve at the end of our episode for my discussion on what this article makes me think instead of what I wanted to say with this article. Shogun, a tapestry of power and philosophy. As the sun units on another day, I discover myself reflecting on the profound adventure this is. This series, a story set inside the heart of feudal Japan, is not just a tale informed, it's a philosophical odyssey that beckons the soul to wander its depths. The essence of authority. Shogun whispers to us of energy, now not as a force wielded, but as an essence to be understood. It is within the silent power of Yoshi Toranaga, a leader whose expertise transcends the mere act of ruling. Inside the eyes of John Blackthorne, an Englishman adrift in a sea of samurai honor, we see the mirrored image of our look for that means in an international of contrasts. A meeting of minds. The collection is a dance of cultures, a meeting of minds in which East meets West, and everything is forever changed. It asks us, who are we when the arena around us is unexpected? And can the self genuinely be recognized whilst mirrored inside the different? These are the questions that linger lengthy after the display screen fades to black. The human narrative. In its storytelling, Shogun is unhurried, much like the considerate pace of a tea ceremony. It lets in us as the distance to breathe within the characters' dilemmas, to savor their words heavy with that means. Each scene is a planned step in a larger dance, every action a stroke in a grander painting of life. A symphony of sights and sounds. The series' visible and auditory elements are not mere elaborations, however indispensable to its philosophical discourse. The cinematography is a ceremonial dinner for the senses, even as the song is a symphony that stirs the spirit. They are the threads that weave together the tapestry of Shogun's narrative. Reflections in a modern mirror. When I recollect Shogun along its contemporaries, its philosophical richness shines even brighter. It does now not use philosophy as a trifling backdrop, however, because the very ground upon which it stands. It is a series that challenges, no longer simply entertains, and invites us to ponder the eternal question of our existence. A Journey's End. In last, Shogun is a series that transcends time and area. Its exploration of the human situation is as relevant now as it became inside the days of shoguns and samurai. It is a reminder that the hunt for knowledge is a journey without an end, one that continues to unfold with every passing second. Now, this was a very brief article compared to others, as it delves on the main themes from Shogun, and I want to go back to a meeting of minds, as there was a quote from Thomas, which I really liked, that says, "Can the self genuinely be recognized whilst mirrored inside the different?" Okay, so what I want to deepen on with that phrase is that I recently moved to another country and I had a bit of an existential crisis because even though it's not as opposite as, say, Japan to Portugal, the way that it is portrayed in Shogun, or Japan to Portugal and England, it was very different still. So I moved from Mexico to Denmark, and they're very different. But in a way, they're similar. Because, it's still kind of the Occident. People share similar values, similar ideas. But at the end of the day, it is very, very different, right? Mexico is all about being friendly, going out, being extroverted, and just food and colors. And Denmark is more of, I'm friends with you, but there's a certain limit. and, the weather is cold. The food scene is kind of an international scene. You can find a little bit of everything. And spending time with people, I felt very, very different from myself. I felt I no longer knew who I was. So in a way, I was kind of questioning myself. Can I recognize myself in the mirror if I'm in a different place, surrounded by different people? And talking about this with a friend, he said to me, he's a psychologist, and so one of his teachers told him, we build ourselves from the gaze of others. And I think that's also very true, and it's a prevalent theme in Shogun, because imagine you build yourself a personality. At the end of the day, people separate themselves into categories, and people also separate themselves into roles. Like the roles are very clear in society. So, if you're the goofy person, you have to go to the goofy people's box and behave like they all do. And so even though humans are very complex and very different from one another, sometimes it's very difficult to grasp all of that differences. So we push people to a certain box. And then once people are pushed to that specific box, they are expected to behave a certain way. And many times they behave that way because that's what they were put to do in the first place. So, that's what happens in Shogun. John Blackthorne was in England put to be this criminal, this pirate, this abusive person. He takes advantage of others, and he takes advantage of the situation, of the government, of maybe people in vulnerable positions. But then he was seen with a different gaze being in Japan. He was seen as this foreign man who is barbaric and dirty and almost a savage, but he also seems wise, and he seems like he knows a thing or two, and he might seem like a perfect military asset. He also speaks both languages, so, he can communicate. Oh no, he doesn't speak two languages. He speaks Portuguese, and so he can communicate with the Portuguese that are already there, and the Catholics who were there, and his religion is similar to the Catholic one. So, all of a sudden, he's put in a new box. So he cannot recognize himself. And I think that's very interesting. Out of all of the themes that Shogun portrays, I think that specific theme is rarely touched on screen or on stage, pretty much. And I think it's a even more complicated thing to put into words, but what I'm trying to say is, what if bad people, let's say, like John Blackthorne, he was a criminal in England because he was a pirate. But what if bad people in our current society continue being bad or morally questionable because they were defined by one thing they did, and they were never accepted as something different? So if they were already perceived as a specific type of person, then why fight it anyways? Why try and behave otherwise if society already told you what is expected of you? So is there a possibility in which people are different from what they could be because they were imposed a specific role and personality by others? And so they started building themselves by the gaze of others. So I'm not sure if you're still following, because this is even very difficult to understand to me. But I don't know, if I compare it to my own experience, being in Mexico, I was this confident person. I knew my surroundings. What I was able to bring to the table was jokes and confidence and maybe topics about conversation and topics about thinking on different perspectives on the most political subjects or the trending subjects from social media or overall the news and what people are talking, to then the foreigner And what she can bring to the table is being different. And so many times you think, oh, I know who I am. I know myself. But then you see yourself reflected from the eyes of others, which they don't know what you are. They cannot put you in any box because you're different from what they're used to. And you're also different from them. And they don't know what to expect from you, so they don't know where to put you. And therefore, you don't know where to put yourself. So let's say I had a bit of an identity crisis because I thought, well, who am I then? I thought that I was this confident person who was also funny and artistic and very different in a artistic way, because most of my friends in Mexico weren't artists. And so I was always kind of like the weird friend who's doing weird stuff, but it's also creative and funny. But then in Denmark, I was surrounded by artists, and that was a similarity to them. But I was seen as no longer the funny, confident person, but the introverted, awkward person. And so I wonder, am I really confident? Am I really funny? Am I really a good artist? Or have I just been lying to myself because that's what I portray to other people? And so it also depends on how authentic is the self and how much can you truly know yourself. And can you know yourself more than others? Because we usually think we do. But if we build ourselves based on the gaze from others, then who knows us best? Because also we can think, oh, I know myself. I know my habits. I know what I am. But what if people can spot our behaviors, especially pattern behaviors from afar and from outside, which makes it clearer and easier to understand? Or if not understand, at least to spot. And if I cannot see myself from afar and from the outside, then how can I truly know certain patterns of behavior that I currently repeat over and over and over again? So I think most of the times what we can really know from experiencing ourselves and from living what we face day to day is our emotions. We can exactly know what we feel and how we feel it, but can we truly know ourselves? Especially if being mirrored inside the different. Please let us know your comments. I would love to hear you out on this topic, especially if I'm just maybe thinking about it too much. Make sure you leave us your comments at flickpov.com or at our social media FlickPOV website. Thank you and see you next time.